here but not joining this event. So I'm the managing director for our Middle East North Africa business, and I'm based in Cairo. And so he asked me to jump in for this event because we're actually working with a lot of these countries on their NDCs today. Morocco is announcing net zero, and so mainly through the work on low carbon pathways, but I'm more the sort of nitty gritty on the ground bottom up person. And Jan Willem is the global connect on partnerships and climate change.
Well, we got to get nitty and on the ground. It's not going so well. It's hot still.
It is. This one is also, well, this is coffee and it's equally hot. I don't know what they did. They just this shop across the street, so they burned it, I think.
This one is live.
But we don't need it.
We don't need.
This is.
You have yours. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Because there were some laying around. Minister, this way, please.
Energy security and net zero for the UK. Yeah, I'm all right. And you? I only got in last night, so I only come when all the glamour's on. Ah, right, yeah. Well, the king's gone, the prime minister's gone, so I arrived, that's it. Just when it gets gnarly. Have you been here since the beginning? Right. Yes. Yes. Well, you're a woman in high demand. Thank you very much. Thank you. Based in Rome. Nice place. Nice place to be based.
Low emission, long term. Long term, low emission development strategies. That's the formal official name of it for long term strategies.
Yeah, this whole event's on a very large site, but I think quite a large part of it could just have all the acronyms involved in the climate world.
The jargon is just overwhelming.
Strongly.
I think that's your entry cost, right? If you want to be part of the community, you have to first learn the jargon. So not everybody enters the community. You have to have some entry cost, right? Otherwise, everyone can do the cheap stuff.
Yes. I've always slightly refined.
Yes, exactly. I'm special.
It's an area where if you don't know your way around this, you're obviously not fit to.
But it's also a little bit primitive, in the sense that we all need to be part of the community, and this is your pathway. Your secret pathway to the community. So I rally against it within the organization, none of the documents that we bring out, etc. And even the talks that we do try and not have abbreviations and acronyms, but I so much fun.
Colleagues, if I could please ask you to find a place. We're about to get started. Great. So, thank you very much for joining us this morning. This is our most important event of the week. Welcome to the NDC Partnership Pavilion. This is your pavilion. You're all our members, our leaders, and we very much appreciate the opportunity to convene you and to have a conversation about the role that the NDC Partnership needs to play as we move forward, especially when we know that we're not doing enough, and when the global stocktake is going to be reminding us that we need to do a lot more. So I'm pleased to welcome you here today, and I'm very, very proud to see that after 7 years, so many members and partners are embracing the spirit of the partnership. So when you join us today, you're here to showcase the amazing ways in which you are contributing to our collective effort to drive ambitious climate action. I am also very happy to have our current co-chairs, the United Kingdom and Rwanda, joining us. We also have our incoming co-chair, Denmark, and we have several of our previous co-chairs. So welcome all to this event. The first report of the technical dialogue of the global stocktake underscores 3 critical gaps: ambition, implementation, and finance. And if you look around, you're going to see a lot of information about how we are moving forward in supporting countries to bridge those gaps. We know that these gaps are interrelated and are interdependent, which means it's a very complex situation. So we need an urgent course correction to advance in the right direction. When the effects of climate change are so far-reaching and interconnected, so too must be our response. We need groundbreaking coordination and a level of commitment yet unseen to accelerate support to countries. And this can only be done by doubling down on the success we've achieved to date. The partnership-proven model delivers in this context and in this complex reality. We are successfully supporting more than 90 countries around the world to plan, enhance, update, and mobilize finance to implement their NDCs. Yes, we know it. Countries need to further increase their ambition. And we also know that they are not yet on track to implement their current climate commitments. But the reason of this is because they need significant technical and financial support to do both. And this is exactly why we are here. Today, we commit to strengthen our collective efforts to support countries to accelerate climate action as a coalition, to take the partnership to the next level together. So let's get started. Minister Jean-Darc Mujawa-Maria, you are the co-chair of the NDC Partnership. You are representing here Rwanda as the Minister of Environment. It is my great pleasure to invite you to give your opening remarks as we reflect on how the partnership is well positioned to continue to address the challenges put forward through a global stocktake. Minister, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Pablo. Her Excellency Netumbo Nandi, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Namibia, the Right Honorable Graham Stewart, Co-Chair of NDC Partnership, representing the United Kingdom, and Minister of State, Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, Honorable Akim Sterner, Administrator and United Nations Development Program, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed, good morning. It is my great honor as the co-chair of NDCP, representing developing countries of our partnership. I'm pleased to be with you in this 28th UNFCCC Conference of Parties, COP28, and I welcome you all to this important NDC Partnership high-level event at COP28, leveraging the NDCP model to address the challenges of the global stocktake. We entered COP28 in an increasingly tumultuous and divided time. Meanwhile, we await the outcome of the first global Stocktake, anticipating a stark assessment of the gap between the current reality and the level of climate action needed to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius. We all agree that the effects of climate change are far-reaching and interconnected. So too must be our response. Transformational change is needed to cut emissions and adapt to a changing climate, and while meeting development needs. Such change requires groundbreaking coordination to mobilize resources globally with speed and scale. More than ever, countries have clearly articulated their priorities. For instance, among NDC partnership developing countries, members, 85% request some type of finance-related support. As a partnership, we will stand together to scale up support to countries to deliver on their commitment they have made, and in doing so, align our support for increased ambition in the next round of NDCs. We are gathered here today in this level discussion to demonstrate the transformational impact of the partnership's model of collective action. The first report of the technical dialogue of the global Stocktake underscored the challenge before us, identifying 3 critical gaps across global ambition, implementation, and finance. Today's dialogue gives us, all members of the partnership, an opportunity to share, highlight our priorities, ambitious and concrete commitments, and actions we are undertaking domestically and internationally, including our response to the global Stocktake, to bring the world on track to keep 1.5 degrees and the Paris goals within reach. The NDC partnership is addressing these challenges through our successful model of coordination and the global mobilization of resources. By leveraging our coalition of more than 200 members, the partnership amplifies the impact of our membership, continuously increasing our support to countries to adapt to and mitigate climate change and foster more equitable and sustainable development. With members, we'll make brief interventions, highlighting the urgent need for a collective action and the roles of members and partners in supporting more than 90 countries to increase ambition, accelerate access to finance, and implement climate action around the world. Yesterday, together with the NDC partnership and the government of the United Kingdom, we launched a center to catalyze systemic change to unlock climate finance at COP28 to demonstrate consistent action and amplify the knowledge generation and adoption of best practices, making them accessible to the partnership's more than 100 developing countries members. None of these achievements would be possible without the steadfast commitment of countries' members' leadership and commitment to our partnership. Country members to partnership are the main driving force behind the progress we are making to address climate change with practical action and with ambition at speed and scale, ensuring that the benefits of our climate actions reach every corner of our world citizens. In closing, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to underscore the paramount importance of global collaboration being enjoyed in this partnership. My country, Rwanda, is proud to co-chair the NDC partnership and the Global Task Force on Access to Finance. Through the NDC partnership, nations come together to engage, make pledges, and find lasting solutions to the challenges posed by climate change. Your presence here today, your commitment to this cause, is a testament to the shared responsibility we all bear. I thank you for your kind attention and look forward to continued partnership and collaboration as we navigate the path towards a sustainable and resilient future for all. Now, allow me to invite my colleague, the co-chair, Honorable Graham, to the co-chair of NDC Partnership, representing the United Kingdom, to deliver his remarks. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everybody, and it's great to be in this packed room, competing as we are with neighbouring meetings as well. And of course, I come here with a tear in my eye because this is the last time that we'll be attending as co-chair of the partnership, and it's been an honour to share this co-chairship with Her Excellency Dr. Jeanne d'Arc Mojawa Maria, whose leadership of the partnership, as you've just been able to see with her well-informed and passionate words, has been and continues to be so admirable. And I know that under Rwanda's continued leadership alongside Denmark as the incoming co-chair, the NDC partnership can go from strength to strength. Because as this great conference reminds us each year, the impact of climate change is, as Dr. Jeanne d'Arc Mojawa Maria has just set out, is a global issue, and collaboration and working together is fundamental to delivering it. We need a global response to a global problem. And as we discuss the outcomes of the global stocktake in our negotiations, we cannot ignore the scale of action that is required. And as I've said, worldwide collaboration will be crucial, and this partnership is a shining example of what that can lead to. During the UK's term as co-chair, we've seen more than 50 countries developing NDC implementation plans, because there's no point signing up, as we do here, to these various high-minded pledges if we can't work out materially and in a granular way on the ground how are we going to deliver that within our own national context. And we've seen tremendous efforts from members to create a more even balance between mitigation and adaptation, which is fundamental too. But to help them aim even higher, we must meet developing countries' urgent need for technical assistance, capacity building, and of course, finance. And this is where the true strength of the partnership lies. With membership from across the international climate spectrum, we're helping nations turn their commitments into climate action. And the UK is proud to be shaping its international climate finance to respond to country-owned climate plans. We've got to recognise it's built from a country level. And I'm delighted today to announce up to £80 million of additional funding through our flagship UK PACT programme that my co-chair just mentioned. UK PACT works in partnership with governments across Africa, Asia and Latin America to provide that technical assistance that supports their green growth priorities. It will continue to provide tailored support across renewable energy, sustainable transport solutions, greening financial systems, and forests and land use as part of coordinated international support, but focus on the particular needs and particular issues which each country has and faces. We've also been working closely with the NDC partnership as we develop the task force for access to climate finance. And I'm pleased to share that earlier this week, we announced a new centre, as has already been referred to generate knowledge and best practice on access to climate finance. And the centre will be hosted by the NDC Partnership's support unit, drawing on the partnership's vast network and insight to create the systemic shifts needed. So, as we hear from partnership members today, I urge everyone to consider how you can make the most of this fantastic platform, how we can work together to ramp up our ambitions for the next round of NDCs. And can I thank everyone in the room for their continued collaboration, and you and the team for all your hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ministers Mujawa Maria and Ram. We're very proud to have you as co-chairs. And let me take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership, for your commitment to the partnership, and in this particular moment, to recognize the United Kingdom's role. You have been a co-chair for 3 years. And I want to say that the steps that you have taken to push forward the partnership have been amazing. I want to thank you, Minister Stewart, thank Zoe, thank Fran, thank the whole team at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero for what you have done for the NDC partnership. I would also take this opportunity to welcome Denmark as our next co-chair. We will hold a formal handover later today, and we will celebrate the tenure of UK tomorrow in our 7th annual member forum. So we hope you all can join us. For now, allow me to introduce UNDP Administrator, Mr. Achim Steiner. Mr. Steiner, UNDP and the work of the Climate Promise is fundamental to the delivery of our collective efforts. And in fact, UNDP is the implementing partner that is responding to the most requests coming from developing countries around the partnership. As we rally here in Dubai to carry forward the spirit of the Paris Agreement, how is UNDP leveraging NDCs to drive sustainable development through strong climate action? I think you are in a better position than anyone to tell us what we need to do to keep the spirit of the Paris Agreement alive and to drive forward with ambition. Please.
Pablo, thanks for the pressure. My dear colleagues and friends, the co-chairs, ministers, excellencies, dear colleagues. It's always a pleasure to come together in our NDC partnership, because I think it is a demonstration that against all odds, something that people invented with a very unfortunately complicated name called the Nationally Determined Contributions some years ago, and I always would love to trace the person who first came up with this term. Because I had to practice for quite a while until I could just rattle it off and make it sound like it's the most normal thing in our world of climate change and development. But you know, remarkably, Pablo, we stand here now at COP28, and we actually see NDCs having matured from originally a kind of crisis response idea, namely, how on earth do you start translating this paradigm shift that we saw emerge after Copenhagen, that really it is for countries to drive the global climate change effort from the perspective of their countries, and increasingly from also, and this has been fundamental to UNDP's interpretation of NDCs, an expression of national sovereignty. Because to me, the NDCs today, in their best form and in their most effective interpretation, are a country's commitment to itself based on its own consultations, its own assessment of its possibilities, of its imperatives to act, and critically, by also identifying how much further it could go if action on climate change is actually a partnership and an act of co-investment, rather than a kind of sending each other invoices and bills about what it takes to get something done, which is where we often spend our time when we talk about finance. It is also a way, and this is not yet sufficiently evident, and I think again with the partnership I would suggest we need to pay more attention to this. It is also a way of beginning to comprehend how much countries are already investing in mitigation, adaptation, loss and damage out of their own national resources. It is one of the strange phenomena in many of our international negotiations that we come to the table thinking that it's only one side that is paying and the other side is not. And it actually is a view that is held by both sides simultaneously, which is an interesting question. Again, why do we find ourselves in such a dynamic for negotiations? So from the vantage point of UNDP, and I don't want to take much of your time because there are others here who will speak to much more concrete examples from their countries also, the NDCs have become a vital part of the Paris Agreement because without them, the Paris Agreement would not be credible. It is the only way in which we can actually ratchet up, as the Paris Agreement envisaged at the time, raising the levels of ambition. And to do so not by sitting in Dubai or in Bonn or in wherever else the COP meets and declaring a target for the world that everybody walks home and says, well, who is actually going to do this? It is by building up, country by country, the level of commitment, the national economic and financial strategy to actually make these things happen. So that's the first very important part for why in the work of UNDP, and as you know, we are a wonderfully global network of partnerships across 170 countries. So in the NDC partnership, we are very happy to play that role also of being a connector of so many different NDCs on the one hand, but secondly also as a learning platform. Every country is reinventing and innovating all the time. And this has been one of, I think, the very useful things in our partnership, that we can quickly create a community of professionals that have immediate insight into where the latest approaches on NDCs are evolving. I was yesterday also on the platform when the Gender Transition and Climate Change Declaration was launched, and I made the point that we took a very deliberate decision in our work together with the NDC partnership partners to make gender an integral and explicit part of the template with which we would work with countries to make, first of all, visible the gender dimension of climate change, but more importantly, to be helpful to countries that want to not only engage with women on climate change, but also to identify ways in which an NDC can explicitly cater to gender differentiated responses. And I think there has been so many different stories like this of being able to learn from one another how you can do this, that I continue to think that UNDP's most important contribution to the climate change agenda is to continue to invest at national level, but then also at the global level through this partnership and in our work in the COPs, in making these NDCs more and more credible, more and more trusted as a document that actually expresses a national intention, but also creates accountability where it most matters, which is by a government to its own citizens. Because that's what the NDCs are, in many respects, ultimately going to turn them into the most useful document. They are also a part of our Paris Agreement, of coming together at the UNFCCC, but let's continue to focus on the fact that NDCs are ultimately a compact between a government and its people on how to address climate change nationally as an act of sovereign decision-making and as a way of engaging with partnerships internationally. And that remains our commitment. And as we work towards COP30 and hopefully another generation of NDCs that will perhaps bring us closer to a little dream. And here, Jean-Jacques, we have been together at many COPs. Think back for a moment to Paris, and this is my last point. We were in a 3.5 degree scenario. When we met in Glasgow, we basically saw NDCs taking us to a 2.5 degree scenario. And we all know that NDCs are not automatically translated into actions, but nevertheless, the intent is there. Imagine if we could meet on the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement in Belém at COP30 and essentially say, at least on paper, we still have a way to make a 1.5 degree world possible. I think this would be the ultimate tribute to that individual who may not have realized when they created that abbreviation NDC that they may have created one of the most significant vehicles for getting the world to work together on climate change. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Achim, and thank you for your leadership, for your commitment to the NDC partnership, but also to the Paris Agreement, to the NDCs, because we need that. We need to double down on our commitment to drive this tool that maybe many don't understand it, but it's the one thing that will bring us together, that has some level of accountability, that allows countries to really do what they need to do. So thank you very much for that. Deputy Prime Minister Netumbo Nandi, Deputy Prime Minister, you're also the Minister of Foreign Affairs for Namibia. It is truly a pleasure to welcome you and hear from you in terms of what Namibia is doing to drive climate action. Your government has just approved the updated NDC. Can you please join us here and tell us a little bit about how your country is planning to advance its ambitious commitment to climate change, and what are the needs that Namibia has to be able to effectively drive forward its ambition? Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, moderator, the co-chairs, honorable ministers, country representatives, development partners, ladies and gentlemen. First, on behalf of the government and the people of Namibia, I would like to extend our gratitude to the NDC partnership for hosting this very important event and the invitation extended to us to participate. As we might all be aware, the objective of the global Stocktake, as established in Article 14 of the Paris Agreement, is to take stock of the implementation of the Paris Agreement and assess the progress made towards achieving its long-term goals of limiting the increase in the global average temperature to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial level, increase climate resilience in developing countries, and shift towards low-carbon development. The Republic of Namibia takes note with a serious concern the findings of the Global Synthetic Report on Climate Change 2023, that our global collective action on climate change falls short of what is required by science to arrest the global warming. I really also feel the competition, but we have no choice. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is real, and we are already battling its impact. We have a shared vision and a collective responsibility by halting global warming before it's too late. As party to the Paris Agreement, we strongly believe that we are contributing our fair share to the global efforts to fight climate change. Despite being a net sink of carbon emission, our NDC promises to reduce the greenhouse gas emission by 65% and further enhance the sink capacity to 5,000 metric tons of emissions by 2030. Therefore, we urge each party to the Convention and its Paris Agreement to take meaningful action that reflect its fair and equitable share of accountability in line with historical responsibility, respective national circumstance, and economic capability. Moderator, we are in a decade of action to implement the Sustainable Development Goals without failure. The SDG 17 calls for the formation of partnership and cooperation at all levels to achieve the 2030 developmental agenda. And I believe it is in this spirit that the NDC partnership was founded, and that will be the guiding principle to all of us moving forward. Since joining the NDC partnership in 2017, Namibia secured technical and funding assistance from the partnership's Climate Action Enhancement Package to revise and update its NDC targets and develop its NDC implementation strategy and action plan for climate-sensitive sectors. The country also developed an NDC partnership plan which highlighted 22 areas of support, to which 14 development partners pledged to support. In the updated NDC, adaptation is at the center stage. It includes a prioritized list of 36 adaptation measures in the areas such as agriculture, water resources, health, biodiversity, and the ecosystem, the fishery, the aquaculture, infrastructure development, and coastal zone sectors. And to implement these adaptation measures, the country needs about $6,013 billions. Namibia NDC is costed, and this we have made available during the Paris Agreement, is costed at 15 billion between now and 2030. Therefore, as we take stock of our respective climate action, we need to ensure that financial flows are consistent with the pathway towards low carbon emission and climate resilient development. This calls for developing targeted and effective resource mobilization strategies to secure climate finance both internationally and domestically from the public and the private sources. And I think this goes well with the previous speaker who underlined that resources should be mobilized from all corners while recognizing our common target but different responsibility. While fostering transformational partnership, we believe that the NDC partnership can contribute immensely in assisting countries to bridge the financial gap in implementing our NDC. In the area of mitigation, Namibia as a country, we want to go further to reimagine our economy through green industrialization. Our green hydrogen strategy is a bold initiative, and we believe it's a necessary step in shifting towards a green, modern global economy that will give a breathing space to our planet, for our planet to take care of us. Finally, moderator, I would like to commend the NDC partnership in its efforts to lend a helping hand to developing countries to forge partnership, promotion of knowledge, sharing and capacity building to collectively tackle the global challenge posed by climate change. Partnership and cooperation are essential elements if we are serious about fixing climate finance and placing livelihood at the heart of the climate action. We must protect our environment. We must protect our planet for our environment and our planet to take care of us. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. Congratulations on your very ambitious commitments, and please count on the NDC partnership to continue supporting Namibia. Let's move on now. I'm very happy to invite now Dr. Joe Puri, Associate Vice President of Strategy and Knowledge Department at IFAD. Dr. Puri, Joe, if you could join us, please. Effectively mobilizing finance, as we have been hearing now, is a critical need for the most vulnerable, especially, whose livelihoods are impacted by climate change, and where there is a greater opportunity to strengthen resilience and shore up economic security. Where do you see the greatest potential for us to leverage the model of the partnership to secure a better future for the generations to come?
Someone said to me quite memorably yesterday, and I'm very much hoping that I don't mutilate this. If you aim for the stars, even if you fail, the worst that you can do is to, I'm going to say this again. If you aim for the moon, even if you fail, the worst you can do is to fall amongst the stars. And
to combine that with another adage, when you go together, you go further. Your Excellencies, co-chairs, ladies and gentlemen, Pablo, members of the partnership, such a huge privilege for me to be here today, and representing also the International Fund for Agricultural Development, which is both an IFI and a UN agency. One of the key things that we've really appreciated in our collaboration with the NDC partnership is the ambition. So we are definitely aiming for the moon. We've really appreciated the partnership. We know that we can go further when we go together. And we've really appreciated the innovation and the out-of-the-box thinking. We know that for climate, we need to think out of the box if we want to do things differently. And as both the global Stocktake process, as well as the COP this year are pointing out, what we need to do is to really take corrective action and to be extremely innovative if we want to achieve different results, and if we really want to get to the 1.5-degree goal that all of us are aspiring for. There are two things that we've been able to showcase and to do with the NDC partnership that we are particularly proud of. The first one is recognizing that we've got to think of different financing options and creating different asset classes if we want to think of financing. And here, the ambition, the implementation, and the financing, the three things that Pablo spoke about in his opening, are really key and have been the mainstays of our thinking and our collaboration together as well. In the overall financing framework, the investment platform, and there is a white paper that we are bringing out together as well, on a climate adaptive food system investment platform, which is really to think about and to get partners all coalesced around this idea that if you invest in food and water together, recognizing that even in the climate space, we all tend to work in our silos: food, water, irrigation, infrastructure, crops. They all tend to work in silos, but recognizing that they all need to come together. And if we do that, then with a lot of the simulation work that we've been doing, we're able to recognize that we can get rates of interest which are approximately 5 percentage points higher than if you were to undertake siloed investments in either food or in water. And this is particularly important for the International Fund for Agricultural Development because we work a lot in climate. 45% of our overall core funding and our overall program of work essentially is committed to climate. This means approximately $1.8 billion during each replenishment period. That's important because our overall program of work is in food, is in agriculture, and in areas that are particularly important for both mitigation as well as adaptation, but in rural areas. And there, when we are looking at the $9 billion portfolio that we've got under implementation, we recognize that having investment platforms that are thinking about building, so I'm going to talk about 4 Bs, building, blending, benefit sharing, and bankability are clearly important. So here, the investment platform that brings together food and water, and really about 60% of the overall adaptive solutions are really connected to water. We want to really get our partners together, get the partnership of the NDC partnership together to really help us to think through these investment options that can think about adaptive food systems and resilient water systems coming together. The other idea that we've been really exploring and taking forward with the support of the partnership and Pablo's leadership as well is the idea that if we really want to get to higher adaptation goals, we've got to recognize that we've got to think of new asset classes. As the Adaptation Gap Report says, we are currently, if you look at new and additional climate financing that is that has been recorded in the past couple of years, we are now at $1.3 trillion for mitigation. We're at $63 billion for adaptation. So there's a huge skew, but we know that the urgency with respect to adaptation is really key. And we're also seeing a greater intention and a greater ambition with respect to adaptation being reflected in the overall NDCs that are also coming out in the second iteration and subsequent iterations of NDCs. But here, it's really important to think about new asset classes that can truly nudge and inspire communities to think about how we can benefit share, even as we recognize that smallholders, and those are the populations and the stakeholders that we work with, are the ones that are really committing themselves to resilience today and are making investments that are resilient, that are adaptive, and that are hugely urgent if we want to also withstand the effects of climate change uncertainty as well as disasters today, so that we can still benefit from the mitigation actions that are going to occur and the consequences of which we are going to recognize as we go further. Here, we're talking about resilience credits. It's an idea to say that we want to bring together the economies of scale, of investment, and think about tradability when we know that there are smallholder farmers that are committing themselves to investing in resilience. There are investors on the other side that are committing themselves to investing in adaptation and have the private, have the financial, and the global incentive to really commit themselves to adaptation and to resilience, and to essentially matchmake them, to bring the two together and to create an asset class that ensures that there is increased measurability, that there is increased bankability of the projects, of the investments, but there is also benefit sharing with the smallholders, with the rural people that are far more likely to invest in resilience than most other populations are, at least in the agriculture and in the food space. And so here we are using a methodology and a technology that we've tried, tested in our $7.5 billion portfolio, which is called the Ability to Respond Index, which has helped us to measure that just from IFAD's own investments along with our partners, we've been able to achieve at least 13% increases in resilience compared to counterfactuals. So there's credibility associated with it as well. And we are able to say as to where these improvements in resilience might occur. So just in closing, I'm really thankful for the partnership, for the innovation, as well as for the ambition, and for all of us aiming for the moon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe, and very important for you to bring up one of the biggest challenges that countries face, which is the mobilization of finance for adaptation. And putting forward innovative solutions is critical. So we appreciate the opportunity to work closely with you. And of course, as we talk about finance, let me now ask Ms. Heike Hamgaard, Managing Director for the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean from EBRD, to come up to the podium. As a valued steering committee member, EBRD joins us today to represent not only themselves, but also to bring the voices of the regional multilateral development banks that are part of the partnership and play a critical role in delivering finance. We've seen the impacts of embedding advisors in country and to supporting capacity building as a critical role so that countries can unlock greater finance. How is EBRD and collectively, what are the NBPs thinking in terms of the approach that needs to be taken to support countries increase the access to finance in a more effective way, especially through capacity building?
Thank you, and good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and I think I'm actually just going to share one country-led platform that has enhanced the country's NDC ambition through partnerships. And so I'm based in Cairo, so apologies, but I'm going to share an example from Egypt of how the NDC partnerships together have actually helped also Egypt to develop and design a country-led platform with the help of regional MDBs and countries to be more ambitious about their NDC targets. So this is about something called the Nexus of Water, Food and Energy, NUAFI. And for those who are not fluent in Arabic, this means actually fulfilling pledges. So NUAFI in Arabic means we fulfill pledges. And the EBRD was incredibly privileged to help the Egyptian government to design the energy pillar. And so the energy pillar is really about commitments to decommission inefficient fossil fuel, in this case gas-fired power plants, 5 gigawatt, to invest in transmission and then to be more ambitious about solar and wind energy and have 10 gigawatts of new renewables. So we signed that last year of COP, but actually this would have not created a higher ambitions on NDC if it wouldn't have been for the partnership with countries like Germany and like the US, who've put not only their money but also their political muscle on the table to help Egypt to become more ambitious. So actually this resulted not only in more ambitions around energy transition, but actually a higher ambitious NDC target on renewable energy. So bringing the renewable energy target forward by 5 years was part of the political commitment that was through, the partnership with countries, the partnership with Egypt, the partnership with MDBs was really possible. And I have to say, I'm really quite happy about sort of standing here today, just 1 year after we signed these agreements in COP, and to talk about actions. So what has happened in a year? So together with Egypt and the different ministries of petroleum and national electricity and renewable energy, we have designed a decommission plan for the first 1 gigawatt of inefficient fossil fuel plants, with a just transition plan, with training for over 1,000 employees. That plan has been designed. 1 gigawatt will be decommissioned at the beginning of next year. What has happened on the transmission that will actually enable the evacuation of all these renewables? So together with partners such as KfW, AFD, the European Union, we've actually invested over 200 million into transmission substation infrastructure, most of which have already been signed to date. And I remember at the time we thought, maybe we mobilize like 500 million for this transition design of the transmission distribution infrastructure. I think we are now closer to 700 million of grant and concessional finance that will help countries invest, and the first 200 million have already been committed. And I think there also, again, Germany has actually not only used their instruments like KfW and their development partners, but we've also seen the first time a climate debt swap. So I don't want to take any of your thunder in your speech away, but we're just so happy that this program for Egypt has actually catalyzed also new innovative climate financing instruments from partner countries. So it also includes a climate debt swap from Germany. It includes grant financing from the European Union. It includes a lot of concessional debt to the government of Egypt to increase the infrastructure. So 200 million down, 500 million to go after year one. And then EBRD, what we do best, we invest with the private sector. So who is building the solar and wind plants? It's all private sector developers. So out of the 10 gigawatt of new wind and solar, in the first year now we have signed 1.8 gigawatt of new wind and solar at the Gulf of Suez to be evacuated into the Egyptian grid. So we feel also great progress. These projects, I have a shovel to show for the groundbreaking of the Gulf of Suez. So you see action on the ground, which brings together partners and more ambitious NDCs, but actually being implemented on the ground through these actions. So I just wanted to share this example with you. Many, many thanks. And I think it wouldn't have been possible without the partnership, without the partnerships around the weird term NDCs that Achim was mentioning, and with country leadership in the case that I'm sharing of Egypt, who really believed in building these partnerships to more accelerated climate action. So if I would be Egyptian, and I feel a bit half Egyptian by now, I would say let's Nuwafi together, let's fulfill pledges together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and very important for you to highlight the importance of partnerships and also how this effective partnerships will lead to effective mobilization of finance that will unlock ambition and happiness. So thank you very much. Now, it is my pleasure, and I'm very happy to invite one of our biggest champions in the work of the partnership, Jochen Flassbart, Secretary of State in the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development. If you could please join us. Secretary, Germany launched the partnership and has driven the coalition forward at every step of the way. Today, Team Germany embodies the complex collaboration required to mainstream climate across the whole of government. Now, so how is Germany leveraging this new climate governance architecture and its experience to support accelerated climate action around the world?
Thanks a lot, Pablo, dear colleagues and friends, dear Jeanne-D'Arc, good to see you. The NDC partnership meetings are always a highlight for me, at each and every COP. And I think you might know it better, Pablo. I think I didn't miss any of them from the very beginning when we launched it together with Morocco back in 2016, and I think that was a great thing at that time. We had the Paris Agreement. It was established, and we were exhausted, and then it became a matter of implementation. And the most beloved word from the Paris Agreement for me is mutual and mutually. And that was all what it was about with the NDC partnership. At the beginning, to develop NDCs where they were not established yet. And it was about implementing them, and later on about enhancing. And as we are here at the Global Stocktake, we see how important this mechanism is also inside the partnership. Achim mentioned it. He said we were in a 3.5 degrees world in Paris. I remember very serious scientists promising us at that time that we are heading for a 5 degrees world. And now we are getting closer. We are not there yet, but I think it's doable. And the partnership is something so positive. And what Heike said, I mean, all is right what you said. And also about the instruments we were using, like the swaps, but you spoke about financing and you spoke about the muscles. And I think it's our muscles that makes a difference. And I remember it's not only the muscles from Germany or from the US, it's also vice versa, the muscles from Egypt. And when we were developing the deal, the Navafi deal, the energy pillar, we got deeper and deeper into the issue of the energy system in Egypt. We learned a lot, but I think the Egyptians also learned a lot about their own system, and that brought us a bit closer to where we need to be to reach our keep our 1.5 degrees in reach. And it's not something nice to have. It's as we know from the special report of the IPCC, you cannot desire to have a 2 degrees world. It's such a huge difference that we need to do everything, each and everything, to get the 1.5 in reach. So as you were talking about the architecture inside the government, I think although we are under really very big pressure looking at the multiple crises in the world, and I think it affects all the governments. We were captured by COVID. Our economies went brutally down. We saw how important it is in those times to collaborate more intensively together. At the same time, countries were more focused on their own economies to get them fit again. Then the war in Ukraine. Now we do have the horrible situation in Middle East. So it takes a lot of attention of our leaders, and we have to ensure that we don't miss to keep on track also with a long-term crisis, and that is the biodiversity and the climate crisis. So inside the German government, after the last election, climate foreign policy moved to the Foreign Office, and I think rightly so. Although it was taken out of my old ministry, the Ministry for Environment, I think it's good to put it into the center of global diplomacy. That is where it needs to be. And the national portfolio went to economy and energy. Also a bit strange at the beginning for all of us, but if you do it with the right enthusiasm, it's correct to do it there, because you need to transform the whole economy. You need to transform the whole energy system. We as a Ministry for Development are doing what we ever did. We are cooperating with our partners and trying to make progress on what we learned in our countries, what we learned through the partnerships. And Pablo, I really need to applaud the NDC partnership and you personally. It's so wonderfully to see what's happening here. It's a huge network. it's about countries, the parties being member. It's about financial institutions, the World Bank, the EBRD, other regional development banks. It's about UNDP. And not the least IFAD and others. And I think that is what makes a difference. And I'm very happy here to again confirm that we are going to continue to support the partnership, this time through UNDP, the climate promise with 7.8 million euros. For the long-term and low-emission development strategies, the thematic portfolio under the partnership. So happy to be here and happy to come back next year.
State Secretary Flaspert, you have been here now 7 times. This is the 7th, so that you know. And you have worn different hats, but you've always brought the consistency and the commitment of Germany, so we very much appreciate that. It is my honor now to invite Minister Samura, former co-chair of the NDC Partnership and Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation of Jamaica, to provide remarks. Minister, given Jamaica's vulnerability to climate impacts, how are you engaging the whole of society in the effort to ensure that adaptation is part of your comprehensive climate framework, and to ensure inclusivity in both implementation of actions and in accessing the benefits of climate action? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and good morning, colleagues and friends. It is good to be back with the NDC partnership this morning. Good to see good friends, and we have a lot of work to do. I stand here with you this morning as not just a former co-chair, but representing Jamaica, a nation that understands the stark reality of climate change and the need for comprehensive action. Jamaica, like many nations, are already facing the brunt impact of climate change. So whether it is sea level rise, saltwater intrusion in our wells, deteriorating soil quality, Jamaica is on the front lines of the crisis. It threatens our way of life. Ultimately, 70% of Jamaicans live within 5 kilometers of the sea in low-lying areas. The prospect of sea level rise is a real threat to our very existence as a nation. In the face of these challenges, Jamaica has responded with, I think, quite ambitious NDCs, helped certainly along with the partnership. And we have sought to bring the whole of society into our confidence, A, to explain the risks, and B, to bring them along in charting the way forward. One of the ways that we have engaged all stakeholders is firstly, through our consultation code of practice within the public sector, which forces all government agencies to interact, engage on all critical national issues. The other way that we have brought an all-of-society approach in is through our National Partnership Council. Our National Partnership Council is a council of the cabinet which brings sector leaders, religious leaders, labor leaders, youth, all to the table to discuss critical national issues. We have formally included for the last 3 years climate change on the agenda of this council, and regular reports are provided to them in terms of progress, both in meeting our NDCs as well as explaining the challenges. But engagement cannot end with planning. It is the very heart of engagement strategy to ensure that in a democratic society as Jamaica is, that all of society is involved in the discussions, that all of society understands the challenges. We have also started with a national school program where we're reviewing the curriculum taught to our young people to ensure that climate sensitivity is woven into the curriculum of our children. We also do regular engagements with our schools. Certainly, I know I visit several as we proceed. But ultimately, as you seek to implement your NDCs, and yes, the issue of financing is there. It's a huge cost. Society has to be brought in. When developing countries like Jamaica are going to make the sorts of economic decisions to build more resilient infrastructure, meaning more expensive infrastructure, to decarbonize its economy, meaning sometimes retiring plants before they're quite ready to be retired, it requires the permission of society as a whole. And to get that permission, it requires social cohesion. It is why for a nation such as Jamaica, the issue of adaptation is at its core. And it must be. And as AVP Puri would have said, water in adaptation is at its core. Because if you risk social cohesion, then you risk the ability to get society to support the financial decisions that you have to make. It is why in our NDCs, the issue of land use and water are prominently mentioned, and it is why in our upcoming projects, both to be submitted with the help of the NDC partnership and in all of our discussions with the varying funding mechanisms, whether it be the GCF or the GEF, water is at our core. And it is why we are having a national conversation on building that water resilience and explaining to them what will come when and what the sequence will be, so that it does not threaten the social cohesion that we have been building through this wide-scale consultation. Because ultimately, climate action cannot be top-down, it must be bottom-up, and it must include all of society. And I think the NDC's model for engagement is a good model for governments to follow. So Pablo, I thank you and the team, as usual, for the hard work.
Thank you, Minister Samura. And I think that you bring up a very, very important element. It is critical to have the ownership and the commitment of everyone if we want to advance implementation. This cannot be imposed. This is not something that comes from the top down. It needs to come from the bottom up so that it's effectively implemented. So thank you for that. I would like now to invite Mr. René Van Hel, Ambassador for Sustainable Development and Director of the Inclusive Green Growth Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands. Ambassador René, you embody the role of a champion for the partnership in nearly every fora you step in. Thank you for that. As a vocal proponent of integrating efforts across agendas, including the Netherlands' role as co-chair and now champion of the UN Water Action Agenda, through which you are elevating the food, water, climate nexus, how is the Netherlands driving a whole of government and whole of society approach to implementation of ambitious climate action?
Pablo, you make me shy. But honorable ministers, excellent guests and colleagues and friends, very glad to stand here. The Netherlands really wants to forge great partnerships with you all. And we want to do that really in a sense of co-creation. And what we try to bring to the table is some experience, some money, and also the true wish to innovate. I'll be very brief because of time constraints, so I'll say, what kind of experience would we like to bring to the table? Well, when we focus on water, of course, you all know that we're dealing with water and that half of our country is below sea level, so we know something about water management. But what we really like to add to that is that water, look at it as a relatively scarce resource, because fresh water, you cannot take it for granted. So please make it part and parcel of your national economic planning. It will help you. It will help you to secure the sustainable development that you're seeking, because fresh water is key for food, is key for industry. And of course, if I would say what do we see as one of the biggest challenges for climate adaptation, of course, it's food production. That's also where we bring some money. We try to lead on bringing money for climate adaptation. That's also where we're very glad, for example, to replenish IFAD with another 150 million euros in order to achieve those goals. Firstly and foremost, because we see that IFAD is doing the right kind of things. It's focusing on smallholder farming, but it also has the ambition to link all those things all the way into the rather abstract but very important and concrete world of the NDCs. Because at the end of the day, we need comprehensive plans. What very much encourages me is that IFAD really looks at this whole of government concept, and that is what we need. On top of the finance, and that's a bit linked to innovation, we have nice coffers, and the financial coffers, and they are our pension funds. And our pension funds were always super reluctant to go into this world. But finally, they have created a construct. It is called ILX. And that has allowed them to free 1 billion euros in order to partner with the MDBs. And now they have a beautiful pipeline of over 170 projects with which they partner with the MDBs. That's 1 billion euros that is outside the formal climate finance. And the good news is we're also seeking partnerships, for example, with the UK and Germany, but also with Canada and Denmark and Sweden. So that's where finance and innovation come together. And lastly, where I think that we really need to innovate more, because we've all heard of Marrakesh, the World Bank meeting. The bank wants to become better and bigger. Well, they better. Because as a shareholder, I think that they really, really should become better and really should become bigger and much more of a partner in countries and in allowing them to be sovereign over their own investment plans, and in order to really bring different, I would say, concepts of finance together. Because the bank, the MDBs, they have bankable projects, but we bilateral donors bring other stuff to the fore. And of course, then you also have the GEF and the GCF and the LDCFs and the CIFs. And we all bring valuable things together, but how do they all come together, and how do we actually help countries that don't necessarily have the capacity or are really scrambling for capacity to deal with all this? Well, this is really where I think that the MDB should become much better and much bigger, but also should also bring on board the GEFs, the GCFs, etc., to also make sure that they don't just focus on projects, as beautiful as they are, but that they also become part of a much more programmatic approach. So that's where we would like to partner with you on many more other issues, but I now like to wrap up. And thank you so much for your attention, and beautiful that we can be part of this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Rene. And it's really, really nice to see how the conversation is coming together, no, with what Minister Samura said, what Joe said, what Rene is saying. No, we need all these pieces to come together, developed countries, developing countries, institutions. And if we're all aligning our agendas and our way of moving forward, then we can bring that convergence through the partnership to really generate impact. So thank you for that. I would like now to invite our next speaker, Ms. Gillian Caldwell, Deputy Assistant Administrator and Chief Climate Officer for USAID. Not too long ago, we were celebrating the return of the United States to this convention. In the time since, the United States has recommitted to the partnership, to the Paris Agreement, is bringing a strong voice to our steering committee, and is providing catalytic support to developing countries on the ground. So thank you for that quick ramp up of your commitment and your support. So it would be great to hear from you how the United States is leveraging the partnership to scale up support for climate action around the world.
Thank you so much, Pablo, and greetings. So many distinguished guests and ministers and friends, I can say, after 3 years on the steering committee. I share a seat with Trig Talley from the State Department, who I think is probably deep in the throes of negotiation now. So I want to talk about, I think, a really exciting opportunity that we're just beginning to advance at USAID, because as so many people have said, the promises of the NDCs are absolutely critical, and on paper, we're headed in the right direction. But in practice, we are so far behind, right? We saw the advanced draft of the Stocktake, and it's not good news. So we have got to focus on the implementation, and that's where the NDC partnership is so critically important. And in response to that critical need for a focus on implementation and the finance to deliver, we have recently launched the Comprehensive Action for Climate Initiative, or CACI. And this is going to be working directly in partnership with the NDCP. And we're expecting $250 million in commitments from our missions around the world just to start. And what CACI will be doing is focusing on the policy action necessary to advance the impact and set the stage for that private sector investment, the capacity building, which is so important because recent surveys suggest that 65% of government leaders around the world lack the training, insight, and knowledge they need to respond to the climate crisis. Of course, the support also on the concrete action required to implement on the NDCs, and also support on measurement and evaluation. A key part of CACI will also be really mobilizing the private sector. And just since we launched in COP28 in Glasgow, we've gathered momentum. We're now working in 23 countries worldwide, and we've just recruited 2 new private sector partners who are committed to mobilizing $10 billion over the next 5 years to support NDC implementation in our partner countries. Another private sector partner just committed to investing $100 million in Zambia to advance action towards the NDCs. And we'll expect a lot more. So a big focus for USAID and our overarching strategy is to catalyze the finance necessary to deliver on these NDCs. We have a goal to catalyze $150 billion in public and private sector finance by 2030. Another initiative which we launched just yesterday and about which I'm very excited is IMCA, the Investment Mobilization Collaboration Agreement. This is a joint agreement between the United States, Denmark, Finland, and Sweden. And it's specifically focused on providing the underlying risk insurance and the sort of credit guarantees, as well as that concessional finance necessary to advance substantial new climate-oriented deal flow. We already have one deal. We just launched the agreement yesterday. We already have one deal in development that we think will catalyze $1 billion towards the effort. So really trying to focus on the financial gaps. And the truth is that for our governments around the world, no matter how generous we try to be, we're never going to have enough to fill the gap. I mean, we're looking at $5 trillion a year in public and private finance required for adaptation and mitigation combined. So if we don't start thinking differently about how we use our money, and when it comes to those guarantees that Denmark is providing, that is just, that's latent money, right, that is available. If governments can free up that money that is latent, right, to provide, to de-risk the investment, it really sets the stage for the private sector to step into the terrain. So happy to be here, really excited to be trying to move this forward. I see Emily from the State Department in the back. And is APT Associates here? We've got our implementing partners. Okay, so if you want to talk about CASI, if you want to join us with IMCA on that collaboration agreement, we want more countries to participate. The whole point is to agree to combine forces to do more together, which is what the NDCP is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gillian. It's really great news to hear how you're stepping up support and how you're doing it in a way that is working closely with the partnership and its members so that we can really bring together the different resources and we can step up, as you say, moving forward with implementation on the ground. So thank you so much. This has been really great. So I want to thank you all for your kind words, for your commitment to the partnership. To provide final remarks, please welcome Mr. Ole Tonke, Undersecretary for Development at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark. Undersecretary, we're so pleased to be deepening our long-standing collaboration with Denmark as you step into the role of co-chair of the NDC partnership with Rwanda. Denmark is now co-chairing also the global Stocktake process as you step into the role of the NDC partnership co-chair. How can we build on the strength of the partnerships model to help close the gaps we are all familiar to that we're seeing in the global Stocktake and draw on the strengths of those in this room here in Dubai and around our more than 200 members to accelerate action on the ground? You have the ownership now of the partnership as you step in, but you also have an incredible insight into the process of the global Stocktake that will ideally align the work of the partnership with that. So please.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and it's really a great honor to be here today, and we are also really proud to now take up the co-chairmanship together with Rwanda, and there will be a handover later today, I understand, with my minister. He's very much looking forward to that, and I know you already have a very, very strong personal collaboration on so many different issues, so we are really looking forward to that. And on top of that hat that he's taken on, he is now arrived at the COP ready for the GST negotiations that he is heading together with Minister Creasy from South Africa, and which will be, as everybody knows now, I mean, we started off with the COP really on a positive note with the loss and damage fund and all the pledges that has been going for that, much more than what we expected coming in, on a very positive note. We really hope that can be brought into the negotiations of the GST. As everybody know, they will lay the foundation for how to move forward with the NDCs, especially at the COP30 in 2 years' time. Again, they will go through basically everything and have a really thorough look at both ambition, adaptation, and financing that we've heard so much about here today. And the NDCs will be at the center stage of exactly this. We know we are not on track on ambition, and we are not on track on financing, on mobilizing all the money that is needed for the NDCs. So we really hope that something will come out of the GST negotiation that can really lead the pathway for the next couple of years, and also lead or steer how the NDCs will be updated in the next coming years on all these different accounts. It's this guidance that we hope will be the center stage of the GST document that is becoming very long, I understand, and I also understand that at this point in time of the negotiations, things are turning into a lot of discussions, as always. But again, we are very, very hopeful that that positive note that we started out with will carry through in the negotiations. And again, when we have that result, that is going to be taken into the NDCs and into the work of the partnership. That's the whole philosophy behind it. And again, it's crucial that we have this follow-up, and that we, again, in the update of the NDCs, make sure that we align it with what the GST document will come out with. Then coming to the partnerships and what will happen, then translate this into country-level action will be extremely important. And again, what we have seen is that the NDCs in the beginning was a more technical document, and as Akim was saying, something that lived in one ministry but never really came out to where it should be, for instance, the Ministry of Finance. Our hope is now that the NDCs can move into that and be that central document for the Ministry of Finance and for all the partners in the country, so that everybody will rally behind on what is there on both mitigation and on adaptation, and how do we finance that moving forward. That demands also that it goes into sector level. So what do we do, as many speakers have talked about, on water? What do we do on agriculture, etc.? The sectors that are so central for the adaptation moving forward. So for us, and also coming into co-chair with Rwanda, we really hope and believe that the NDC partnerships will be a crucial platform for the follow-up on the GST in the coming years, and we hope that we can build momentum so that this will lead into a successful COP30 in 2 years' time. So a lot of work ahead of the NDC partnerships that I can assure everybody, but also a lot of hope and aspiration as we move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary Tonka. Independently of the formal outcome of the GST, the NDC partnership is taking the findings very, very seriously, and it's already stepping up to meet the challenge. I want to thank you all for joining us today, for continuing to elevate the work of our members and what they're doing to drive transformative climate action. What I have heard here today is a true demonstration of the level of commitment that is necessary to put the NDC partnership in steroids, I hope that's not inappropriate, to deliver the Paris Agreement. We need to do a lot more, as we've just heard, and we're ready as a collective to do it. We just need to come together. We just need to work harder together so that we can deliver of what developing countries need. So thank you very much once again for joining us today. And I wish you the best for the rest of the COP and hope to see you around over the next few days.